Licensed physicians with a certificate to recommend medical marijuana will register both patients and caregivers and then issue recommendations through the online Patient and Caregiver Registry. The registry runs parallel to the Ohio Automated RX Reporting System. Physicians with a certificate to recommend will log into the registry with their ORS credentials, allowing them to easily toggle between the two systems. First, check to see if the patient is already a medical marijuana registrant by using the search feature. Search for the patient by filling out the fields marked first name, last name, and date of birth. To search using partial spelling, click the boxes above the name fields. You can also search by clicking the ID number tab. Enter the number for a patient's driver's license, Ohio BMV ID card, Medical Marijuana Control Program Registry card, or U.S. passport. If the patient is registered, proceed to the recommendation steps explained later in this video. If no matches are found, click New Registrant to begin adding the patient to the registry. Under Registrant Type, choose Patient and fill out the rest of the page. When completing the new registrant page, be sure to include the patient's correct email address and correct number you see on their government-issued ID. When done, click Create Registrant. The new page is displayed. The patient's name, date of birth, and zip code will link any new registrant to their controlled substance dispensation history within ORS. Any such history will be displayed in the PMP Patient Report section of the registry. Once the patient's registry page is created, find the Recommendation section and click Make Recommendation. For a recommendation, there are 3 fields you are required to complete: the number of 90-day refills the patient can receive, with a maximum of 3, whether the patient has a terminal diagnosis, and all relevant qualifying conditions. There is also an optional section where you can give the patient specific instructions for use. These comments can also be viewed by the dispensary staff to aid in the selection of product. After reading the attestation and terms of use, click Confirm and Agree to finish making the recommendation. The recommendation will now be displayed on the patient's registry page. The patient will receive a link to the registry via email, where they can log in and pay the annual $50 patient registration fee. Registering a caregiver is similar to registering a patient. First, check to see if the caregiver is already a medical marijuana registrant by using the registry's search feature. Search for the caregiver by filling out the name and date of birth fields. You can also search a caregiver by their government-issued ID number. If the caregiver is already registered, proceed to the caregiver linking steps explained later in this video. If no matches are found, click New Registrant to begin adding to the caregiver registry. Under Registrant Type, choose Caregiver and fill out the rest of the page. When completing the new registrant page, be sure to include the caregiver's correct email address and ID number you see on their government ID. Dispensary staff will also be checking the caregiver's government ID when purchasing product to ensure it matches the information in the registry. When you've completed filling out the information, click Create Registrant. The new registrant page is displayed. Now that you have added the caregiver to the registry, the next step is to link the caregiver to the patient. As a physician who links a patient and caregiver, you are attesting that the person selected is in fact an appropriate caregiver for the patient. Use the registry search feature to search for the patient. Click on the patient's name in the search results, and the patient's registrant page will be displayed. Above the patient's registry card, click the Caregivers tab. If the patient is linked to any caregivers, they are displayed in this section. To add a caregiver, click Add. Search for the caregiver using their ID number or name and date of birth. If the search results display the correct caregiver, click Add to Patient to link the caregiver and the patient. The caregiver is now linked, and they will now appear under Caregivers on the patient's page. The patient will also appear under the Patients tab on the Caregivers Registry page. The State of Ohio Board of Pharmacy will complete a background check on the newly registered caregiver, and after approval, the caregiver will receive a link to the registry via email, where they can log in and pay the annual $25 caregiver fee. If you have any remaining questions, please contact the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program's toll-free helpline at 1-833-4OH-MMCP or log on to medicalmarijuana.ohio.gov.